We need our families strengthened. We need them built up. And this is a place where we can do that. So tonight, if you have come to other ZoeCare banquets, we're going to do things slightly different tonight. We want to walk you through what the imparting of Zoe life looks like at each of those 3 stages. So to begin with, I'm going to introduce you to our 45North director, Kyndall Hinkle, who heads up our youth relationship programs. Here is Kyndall.
Good evening. As Chris mentioned, at ZoeCare, we strive to serve the community in 3 areas. One way is being proactive through our sexual education and relationship program and public schools and youth group called 45North. Right now, we are primarily focused on 7th and 8th graders. However, at first, when I heard this quick description of what 45North was, all I heard was teaching sex to middle schoolers. And for probably most, that's not your cup of tea, and it was not mine. I was a girl growing up who wanted to avoid all these subjects at all cost. I didn't even want to tell my parents, especially my dad, that I even liked a guy, mostly because I knew how many guns he owned and feared for the poor guy's life. But here I am this evening, excited to tell you what 45North is doing, and you could say that's God's humor. It's no shock to anyone here in the room of the moral decay among our culture, especially young people. There are nearly 20 million new sexually transmitted diseases and infections, or called STDs, every year in America. 10 million of those, so half, are between the ages of 15 to 24-year-olds. The average age that a child is first exposed to pornography is 10 years old. Starting a few years ago, in the Helena school districts, they have been pushing for sex ed to start in kindergarten. There are phone apps specifically made for teenagers and college students to be able to hook up with somebody with the mutual agreement of no commitment or emotional attachment, just to fill their sexual desires. At the same time, the Center of Disease Control, or CDC, shows that the teen depression has significantly increased since 2005. The most recent sex and teen report by the CDC shows a majority of sexually active teens experience regret over their first sexual experience and wish they had avoided it. Our young people are hurting physically, emotionally, and spiritually. That is why 4 years ago, ZoeCare was approached by parents in the Valley to offer an alternative to the sexual education program that was being taught in the schools. Something that was evidence-based and taught students what healthy relationships are. Today, we are striving to do just that. 45North is not just teaching sex ed to middle schoolers. 45North is a holistic approach of teaching students what healthy relationships are based on sexual risk avoidance. 45North lessons cover many topics, such as understanding the foundations of a relationship, the differences between love and infatuation, sexually transmitted diseases and infections, how and why to set boundaries, refusal skills, harms of pornography, conflict resolution, and many more issues affecting young people today. 45North is made up of trainers, presenters here in the Valley who cherish our youth and want to see them succeed with healthy relationships and avoid the physical and emotional pain that can come from having sex outside of marriage. We want students to walk away knowing they are valued, they are cared for, and they are worth the wait. In general, these topics can be awkward and not fun to talk about, like I experienced as a youth. Therefore, we strive to make these activities really fun and activity-based. For example, we do a lesson on the 5 love languages. Those are acts of service, words of affirmation, gifts, physical touch, and quality time. If you've not heard of this concept, there's a great book by Gary Chapman. I'm sure your church library probably has it. I recommend you go read it. After the students have taken a quick survey to figure out what their primary love language is, we select one of the students whose love language was words of affirmation. We bring them up and put this really double extra large shirt on them so they look like they're swimming in it. And it says Love Tank on it. We then give the other students in the room a balloon and a marker, and they are tasked with writing an encouraging word for that student. So it could be anywhere from, I like your hair, you're an awesome friend, you're good at basketball, and so on. We then have the other students come up to that student and read the word to them, and then we stuff it in the shirt so that it gets filled, so they fill their love tank. After it's full, they look really funny because they're all full, but we always ask them, how do you feel? And they always, with a big smile, say, I feel good. A lesson like this is not only important for them to understand why ways that people love, especially even their family and friends, but for a lot of students, this may be the only time that the student is shown love by their peers. And to share with these students that their value and worth does not come from physical relationships or sex. Right now, we have the great opportunity to be teaching in 3 local area schools. Our 45North goal is by next year, we will double that. In addition, we hope to expand our opportunities to speak to youth groups. While it is important to be sharing these truths to people within secular schools, it is as important that we share with our youth within our church. I, for one, grew up in the church, avidly attending youth group, went through 2 purity ceremonies that was focused on how God designed sex for marriage. I understood the scriptures where it says a man leaves his father and mother to be joined with his wife and to become one flesh. I understood that God wanted sex between a man and a wife. But all those purity ceremonies, I was never explained really the whys. Why did God want that design? Thankfully, the Lord spared me from experiencing those whys myself, but I quickly started to learn later in high school and into college why those whys of why God set it up that way. Those same friends that I went to youth group were experiencing those. I saw friends who got STDs and getting pregnant and not being able to finish school. What was worse was seeing them walk away from their relationship with God in hopes to find value in sex or in other physical relationships, just to end up being emotionally hurt and depressed. I came to understand these whys, and I hurt for them. I understood that these friends had hardships and hurts and from the relationships outside of marriage. And this is why God designed it the way he did. No matter if the youth here in the Valley are growing up in the church or outside the church, our vision for 45 North is we want them to walk away knowing why they are worth the wait. At the same time, never condemning students for the past experiences. Rather, we want to encourage them to know that they can start fresh and they can make new choices. I never knew how rewarding it would be to have students tell you that these lessons made a difference in their life. I also realized for many of these students that the 45 North presentations may be the only time they are told what a healthy relationship is to look like, that pornography is harmful, and maybe the only time they are told that they are valuable. I would love to put ZoeCare out of business. That's my goal, that there wouldn't be crisis pregnancies, that there wouldn't be STDs, because that would mean we are reaching this generation, so they are learning what God's designed for sexuality and the whys behind it, which ultimately brings freedom and joy. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyndall.